Welcome to the Family Dynasty podcast, where legacy meets leadership. I'm your host, Matt Dewing, family guide, business advisor, and believer in generational purpose. Our aim is to inspire and equip you to lead your family so that together you will experience compounding wealth in all 7 capitals through the generations. Each week we uncover timeless wisdom, cultural dynamics, and practical tools to help you lead with vision, live with intentionality, and build a flourishing family that multiplies in impact. Let's get to work. The Dynasty starts now. In an age where we can connect to anyone, anywhere, at any time, more of us feel alone than ever before. The numbers are sobering, and we'll review some of the statistics during today's podcast. But what's alarming is that over half of an entire generation of young people are feeling unseen, disconnected, and without a true place to belong. We live in a paradox, hyper-connected through screens, yet starved for real connection. We work from home, shop from our couch, and hang out through social media. But fewer of us are experiencing the deep face-to-face relationships that make us human. Loneliness isn't just about being alone. It's about being unknown. And when people lose places of belonging like church, community groups, and extended family, let's face it, sometimes even within our immediate family, they lose the safety nets that once held society together. But there is hope. We believe that God designed one place to be the most enduring antidote to loneliness, the family. Not just as a shared last name, but as a living network of trust, purpose, and presence. A place where you are seen, known, and needed. Psalm 68:6 tells us that God puts the lonely in families. Or the ESV says God settles the solitary in a home. His design for healing isolation and loneliness is not through programs or platforms, but through the warmth and security of our most primary, real, and committed relationships, those in a family. When God places the solitary in a household, He's giving them more than shelter. He's giving them a primary place to belong, to be known, and to be loved. Today, we're going to talk about why family can be the strongest defense against the loneliness epidemic, how purpose and service can pull us out of isolation, and how we can build a culture inside our homes and beyond where no one is left unseen. One of our goals in this conversation is to persuade you of the absolute importance of helping your family discern and establish a clear family mandate. A family mandate is your statement of purpose, a mission statement for your household. Businesses take great pains to craft a mission statement that drives every decision and future success. Shouldn't a family with infinite more at stake than a company take even greater care? A clear family mandate unites generations, guides decisions, and gives your children and their children the highest probability of flourishing for decades to come. This discussion with 2 of my daughters, Megan and Ellie, was recorded in June, and we also shared a brief tribute to Phil Robertson after his passing. I hope you enjoy the discussion. Let's dive in. Well, welcome to the Family Dynasty podcast again. Great to be here with you, Megan and Ellie. And today we're going to talk about the epidemic of loneliness in our generation, especially amongst the young people, and specifically how family is, I believe, the ultimate antidote to that. And the takeaway we hope to inspire families with today is to define and live into a purpose statement, what we call the family mandate, or a mission statement. And so we'll talk more about that. But today in our hyper-connected world, right, we're just so connected and yet lonelier than ever. It's such an irony, and we need to understand it more. But more than that, what do we do about it? What do we do about it? So what What are some of the statistics we have?
Yeah, so some of the statistics, a May 2024 Harvard report found that 21% of US adults say they feel lonely, disconnected from family, friends, and community. And Gen Z, which are ages 18 to 24, currently report...
That's you, Megan.
Yes. A staggering 57% feeling lonely, while older generations are improving. And globally, nearly 1 in 4 adults say they feel very or fairly lonely. Among 18 to 24-year-olds, the figure jumps to 59%. And a Gallup Surgeon General advisory earlier from this year reports 1 in 5 adults feel lonely every day.
Yeah, so yeah, it seems such a modern problem that we're having. Why is it? Why today are we experiencing such loneliness, do you think?
Well, there's just such a strange paradox between the hyperconnectivity of everyone because of social media, video games, and whatnot, and then the in-person, real-world interactions. They're just so lacking nowadays. And I think, especially post-COVID, everything has kind of moved digitally. Like, you can go to the grocery store without having to interact with anyone. You can work from home. There's all these things where they're trying to kind of eliminate human interaction, which I feel like doesn't really help anything, but substituting the human interaction with everything technological, even though you can be very involved with other people through social media and whatnot, it just doesn't replace the human interaction that you need, I think.
Yeah. And I feel that even when we are around people and we're connected, whatever, social media, texting, etc., I feel that the problem of being able to be vulnerable, being able to be real with someone is another thing that leads to loneliness. Even if you have people in your life, but you're not opening up to them, you're not being honest with them, that is just going to push you deeper and deeper into isolation and loneliness.
Yeah, because it's so easy to be fake online.
Yeah.
Or you have to be real in person.
Right.
You have that accountability.
Yeah, so it's like switching from that, being able to be fake, and then having to let someone see who you are in person. And that's really hard, I think, for probably especially young people who haven't had practice doing that to do.
Yeah, I think, what's it like on the college campus? I've heard that guys are afraid to even ask a gal out in person. Not necessarily your college, I'm just saying your age in general. Like they're asking them out on text message, or they're using apps is where they feel comfortable. And the thought of a face-to-face question frightens them to death. Have you seen that, or what's your experience with that?
For sure. I mean, obviously, probably it's a little bit different being at a very conservative Christian school. There are more, I don't know, traditional men, I guess you might say, where they still think it's important to have those interactions in person. But I've still heard of countless times, even with my friends, where they'll get asked out or to do something by a guy over text, and they all they try to be very nonchalant about it and be like, well, if you want to. And it's like, okay, we're losing this like drive and confidence, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I was thinking about was when I grew up, before cell phones, is summertime was thought of as a time of boredom. Right? There, you might have a summer day, and if it's raining and you weren't going to camp that week, I'm not hanging out with my friends, I don't have schoolwork to do, boy, I'm bored. And I feel like these days, kids don't get bored. There's just, this entertainment that is always at our fingertips. And I just wonder, I think, what does it mean to be human? We want to understand that, right? How were we created? And if we understand well what it means to be human, we can live into that authentically. And I think this is one thing we're missing in this rising generation. They don't really have a good vision for what that means. And primarily it means we were created for relationship. And that relationship is interacting with someone with skin on. I love, we're not Luddites. We definitely use technology and see the value of it, but we need to limit it, and we need to press into, even when it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, and that's
face-to-face
probably why people aren't doing it as much, because there's such an easier and more comfortable option that they can rest into in the moment, which is false connection.
Yeah.
Technology, something that feels good on their brain, but ultimately it's hurting their health
Right.
in the long run.
Right. And if they don't have a role model, or if they're not being challenged to say, hey, you think this is connection. This is not real connection. This is an artificial connection. This is, this is eating sugar when you should be eating your broccoli. You know?
Right.
Might feel good, taste good, but it's really not going to lead to a life of health.
Yeah.
Yes.
Something else that I think plays into it is the decline in the traditional areas that people would feel a sense of belonging. Like, I think right now there's like a record amount of people that aren't going to church compared to how it used to be, and that's where a lot of people get their sense of community and their sense of belonging. And also, I think the economic state of young people and young families trying to find homes or reliable places to live might limit some people being able to have a family because they aren't like actually able to purchase a home
Yeah.
Right.
and having these traditional places of belonging.
Yeah. I've even heard of some people who wish they could live close to their family. They can't because their family lives in a place that's too expensive, so they have to move away from family just so that they can afford like their lifestyle. And being away from communities that you maybe grew up in, I'm sure that presents a whole other set of challenges.
Yeah, that makes me think, I'm just thinking of Christian churches in America. They don't really speak or preach about the fact that children are a blessing. And the one who has his quiver full of them is blessed of God because of the economic reality. And they're almost putting that reality before God's promise of blessing. We were just recently in another country, and the team I was with, one of the gentlemen gave a talk on, God's design of family and how children are a great blessing. And this was, this was a country that's difficult to live in, but these were grounded Christians who had been in the faith for years, and we were approached and said, we've never heard any kind of sermon like this before. And in hearing sermon after sermon, Sunday after Sunday, and have never heard have children. It's a good thing, right? And after our basic needs are met for food and shelter, our biggest psychological, emotional need is the need to belong. And we can say that in any context. Think about entering a social context, whether you're going to a new school or you're just in a context where you don't know someone. We just all kind of have this need. Where do I fit in? How do I belong? And we feel uncomfortable until we've made a few friends and, okay, now I belong. But I believe that the family is God's gift to us in saying, this is truly where you belong. What do you guys think? Growing up, did you ever experience any kind of loneliness? I know you were in a strong family, a very connected family, but it still doesn't mean that you won't have times of loneliness. Was loneliness ever an issue for the two of you?
I would say, yeah, in different periods of my life, definitely. I think having people around doesn't equal that you're not lonely.
That's right.
Because I think that a big part of not being lonely is connection, and connection takes vulnerability, and it also takes purpose, like purposely trying to seek it out.
Yeah.
And
risk too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, vulnerability is risk.
Yeah. So, and also I kind of was a child who probably kept to myself, so I maybe didn't seek out a lot of connection. And then also when I was in college, I went to a really large university, and there were so many people around, and just for my personality, that was very overwhelming. And instead of really doing some hard things and seeking out some extra community there, I definitely struggled with being lonely in that time.
Yeah.
For me, growing up, definitely not. I don't think I ever really dealt with it. The only time was probably a little bit of freshman year going to college, which is totally understandable because you're moving to a place that you don't know anyone. But it really only took probably a month or two, and I had a great community around me. So I have been definitely blessed to not have to deal with a lot of loneliness.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, when you have a family with 7 siblings and lots of first cousins around,
Yeah.
it's hard to stay lonely. Yeah, for me as a kid, I don't remember. When I think of loneliness, the times I was most lonely was if I had a friend over and the friend left, and I'd have him, oh no, and then something else would happen and you'd forget it. But I don't really remember. Freshman in college, for sure, I remember that season. It's a big growing up time. But yeah, other than that, marrying young. My best friend, and has been for life, that's loneliness has not been a big deal for me, but I understand. I've experienced enough of it to feel the pains of it, to say, wow, if this was extended, this would be painful. This would be hard.
Yeah. I feel like when I think of loneliness, I think of being unseen or being unknown. And like you said, that takes a lot of vulnerability and it takes risk. Even if you have like a large family around, or if you have people who you should be able to trust, it still takes risk on that part to reach out and let other people know you, or to get to know other people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you being a middle child, it's easier to feel lost in the middle of it, right? There's a lot of things going on. Does anybody see me? Does anybody really know who I am? And I think that's something we could talk about from a service we provide here at Family Dynasty. We call it the See Me, Know Me program. And it's the idea, especially as a family grows in generations, and once you get to Gen 3, 4, 5, the family is growing, and there can be quite a few people. And in that context, people can very easily think, am I just lost in the hubbub? Does anyone see me? Does anyone know what my ambitions are? Does anyone know really what makes me tick? What are my motivations? What are my strengths? And so, it's one of our passions that everyone would understand how important they are as an individual and to a family network. And so this program is designed for the rising generation to really help them understand themselves. It's a battery of assessments that help them uncover their strengths and gifting. And then it's a way that we share it with the whole family and kind of celebrate each person as unique. We've done a little bit of that in our family. Do you remember how we've done that? Either one of you want to speak to that?
I know that we have done spiritual gift assessments and discussed those as a family, and people sharing kind of how they're gifted, which has been really cool to understand other people. And I think there was also some kind of leadership style assessment that we also did, and
some personality assessments.
Yeah, to learn and understand everyone a little bit more.
Yeah, and then we brought those up and we discussed. We kind of platformed each individual, mid-teenage years. I remember we did it for you and for Creed.
Yeah.
I think on the same day, and we kind of. I forget whether you read it and explained it or if someone else did, but then we kind of went around the room and like, where do you see this showing up for Megan? And it was a time where we were all speaking into your life and encouraging you, and for Creed, the same thing. And I thought it was a beautiful moment and something we want to continue to do, in that mid-teenage years for each person that's coming up, so that they know. I mean, we want it to be more than just a meeting, but that they become the center of attention in a monthly family meeting where the 30 of us are there, and we are just making a big deal about that person, that we understand their strengths. We want to call their strengths out. We see their gifting. And so that's a bit of what we're trying to go after with the See Me, Know Me program. So how else, when it comes to family, why specifically is family the antidote to loneliness more than anything else? Any other thoughts there?
I think it's just they're the people that know you the best, most likely. You've grown up with them, you live with them.
Yeah.
They're going to be the people that you can trust and, like you're saying, Ellie, be vulnerable with. Probably most easiest because they're the people that have surrounded you your whole life.
Right.
Yeah, there's like a backlog of trust there, or there should be, hopefully,
Yeah.
a backlog of trust, or a place where that can be built strongly.
Yeah, for sure. I think also that when I know my family's purpose, it gives me purpose. And I think when again, knowing what it means to be human, and we're made to be purposeful creatures. And when I can get connected to my purpose, especially when I have a shared purpose with my family, that sense of belonging with purpose, I think, is a big part of loneliness. I think the loneliness issue really stems from a lack of purpose. When you don't have a purpose and you're just aimlessly going about whatever shows up next, you're missing, it keeps you from that connection. But when you realize that I was born into this family has a purpose, I'm part of this purpose, I have to play a role, I'm called into this, is I think a big part of that. And also, when a family does that, right, the service that can happen. One thing that I heard in the last couple of years, I forget who this comes from, but it's a renowned psychologist who has kind of done with the prescription of drugs for antidepressants. They've seen them not being really effective, and they have found that the thing that is most helpful to people who are dealing with long-term depression or any kind of depression is to ask them to go and serve and listen to, just be with and listen to someone who's dying. And that if we'll just serve, instead of thinking what we need, we'll get out of our own needs and then go and selflessly serve someone else just by being present and listening to someone who's dying. That's been the biggest antidote, the biggest help for people who are dealing with depression. All right, so go ahead.
I heard this within the last couple months, and it's something that I keep coming back to. I don't know if you've ever heard of Dr. John Deloney, but he has a book called Building a Non-Anxious Life. And one of the things that he talks about is like what it means to build a community, because that's such an important, or having a community, which is such an important thing to have for overall health, mental health, etc. And he challenges people to to push through the awkward, because even in families, I think it comes a bit more naturally, because you don't mind if your family comes over and you have like laundry on the floor most of the time, because they're used to seeing you at your worst, which is a really good strength for families, because that makes that authentic connection and community come a little bit more naturally. But he challenges, like, have people over, know that it might be awkward and you might have awkward moments, and know that you can leave your laundry out on the floor and just be like a real person and allow them to see that you're not perfect. And I feel like that goes for families and outside of families. But I think if you allow yourself to be known as a real human, that is such a big part of overall health, but also competing with loneliness.
For sure. Yeah, it makes me think one of the things as we're trying as a family to do all we can to fight back against this loneliness that people are having is one thing we're doing is try to bring people into the home. Let's have people into the home. We had a young couple that's been coming to church for a little while. We finally had them over for lunch in the last couple weeks. And I every time we do this, I feel like I don't really get to know someone until we're either in their home or they're in ours. There's something that's sacred and special about that point, that place. And I know this couple in ways that I certainly wouldn't have if we'd have just exchanged pleasantries, or I think even going out to dinner. There's something about having people in your home. So we want to encourage families to just, if whatever goodness is in your family, celebrate that goodness and bring other people in.
And I love that you just kind of have to accept that if you bring someone that has never been in your home before, there's probably going to be like moments of silence, and that's okay. There might be an awkward conversation or an awkward question, and that's okay, because that's just part of being a human. We're not perfect. And
and this is one hang up I think we have, is that we need to get our house looking perfect. We need to, our humble abode isn't good enough to entertain. The most beautiful setting happened when we were in this country. We were in a refugee camp, and this refugee family, young couple, husband, wife, they had baby twins, and they had no furniture. Well, they had little cushions on the floor, concrete floor, and they invited the 8 of us in, and put a spread out on the concrete floor right in front of us, smiling ear to ear. They were as happy as could be to have us in their home, right? So I would say if you have a concrete floor with no furniture, you should be extending hospitality. And you can do it without embarrassment. You can do it joyfully, because we saw it being done, and they were truly so glad that we came into their home. And they weren't embarrassed by it. I'm like, we need more of this in America.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Was loneliness a problem for kids when you were growing up?
I think I kind of touched on that. I mean, sure it was. I don't even know if they were measuring loneliness back then. It's interesting, right? We think it's terrible now. Were they measuring it back then? But I don't know that it was a problem the way it is now. And I think it's a social media age that has really a lot to blame for it. And we didn't have those kind of things. We lived a much simpler kind of life, and it was more connected. But I think what you touched on earlier, the disappearance of mediating institutions like church. If people aren't going to church, if you're not involved in something in the community, it's Boy Scouts, in the demise of Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, right? We've kind of lost that. Thankfully, Trail Life USA, American Heritage Girls, and they're becoming more and more embraced, and you're seeing these organizations grow and having a great impact. In fact, we personally know the value of those organizations. But we need to address for our communities to reinstitute these mediating institutions, because this is framing the habits and the connections in the way that we are in the world. And if we don't have these mediating institutions, it can become insular within family. And then, if I'm not in the family and I'm not at work, I'm only on my phone. We need the mediating institutions.
Yeah.
So, for a family leader who wants to be part of the solution like us, what do they do? What are some next steps that they can think about to be a solution to this problem of loneliness in our day?
Surrounding yourself with more family could be helpful.
Yeah.
Obviously, for some families, that could be more difficult because they come from difficult families, or like, I don't know who said it earlier, but you could just be spread apart across the country, but trying to maybe be near more families so that you have that support system, or having more kids. I grew up with 7 siblings, and that was an amazing community that probably helped with me not having as much loneliness or being near cousins.
Yeah, that makes me think, it's kind of like when we started homeschooling Elena, when she's the oldest, we had deep motivation and conviction for why we did that. You know what our motivation was? We didn't want her to ride a 45-minute school bus ride. Right? That was as deep as we thought. We don't want her to ride the school bus, I guess we'll homeschool. Obviously, our convictions deepened as we went. But in moving home, for us, it's like we didn't have this whole framework. We didn't have a deep conviction. When we lived in Virginia, and it was an 8-hour drive, and our whole conviction for moving back home was, my goodness, every time I get vacation, we go home. Wouldn't it be nice when I get vacation time to actually go on a vacation somewhere else? That was part of the motivation. We kind of laugh about that. But we also had another one of the motivations was, we said at the time, we have a large extended family, Janice and I, and we felt like if we don't have a specific calling somewhere else, why would we deprive our children of a close relationship with their grandparents? We both experienced that growing up, a close relationship. And thank God for technology, and we can do that through FaceTime and Zoom, and those certainly enhance it. But again, this reality of relationships are hugs and kisses. It's being present, and I'll never regret, right? We loved the climate better there, honestly, and I had, my career in that hospital was on a good trajectory, and so we took an economic hit to come home. We'll never regret it. We never regret it. And I think, frankly speaking to families, to say sometimes, in a very upwardly mobile society where, you have to change geographies to get the most earning potential many times, is to challenge families to say sometimes building generationally, the slow growth model is healthier, stronger, better than embracing our upwardly mobile tendencies for these reasons.
That makes sense.
We talked about inviting others into your family orbit, and the one thing that we just want to say, the big emphasis today is if a family has not locked in their family mandate, and we call it a family mandate, it's basically, it's a mission statement for the family. It's the answer to why do we exist? Why has God put our bloodlines on earth? I think that, framing that and getting the answer to that in a phrase that is memorable and compelling, that the family really together embraces, is the beginning of a family really, I think, taking ground to fight against the loneliness. The potential loneliness for their own children and grandchildren, but as they invite others into their orbit and make a difference, I think it can have ripples beyond the family.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. Another thought I have is the family leader could encourage this, but also anyone in the family, just taking time to intentionally meet people who are in your family where they're at, get to know who they are. I feel like you can do that with your siblings. You can obviously do that with your kids. You can do that with younger cousins and be a mentor to them and show them that you see them and you want to know them and help them be like the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
And be the best version of someone who can help grow this family further as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that having those individual connections within the whole group would just be so powerful as well.
Yeah. In our competitive family, Ellie's goal has always been, she's been loud and proud of this, I am going to be the favorite aunt. Have you thought about this lately?
No.
This is something I'm going way back in time, but amongst everybody,
yeah.
it was always Ellie's goal. I'm going to be the favorite aunt.
Yep.
And so just the things that you're talking about, I could see like embrace the awkward, right? You might be saying to a niece or nephew, hey, we're going to go do this play day, and like, Ellie? You know, you're like, yeah, you're coming.
Yeah.
Right? But that's the kind of thing, because you got to be a little awkward. You got to be out there to become the favorite aunt.
And honestly, like I think back because Aunt Missy, she, when I was like 10 years old, she was like, let's go out to celebrate our birthdays because we have birthdays that are like one day apart. And obviously I'm like best friends with her daughters. And I'm like, wait, your daughters aren't going to be there? It's just going to be me and you? Like, is that weird? But then it became a tradition. And even now she takes me out for my birthday. And I feel like it's been such an important...
I'm not crying.
I'm just tearing up.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
But yeah, even though I'm sure she probably had moments where it's like, oh, this is my niece, and we only really went out once a year, and she might have felt like could be awkward, but it was so important and meaningful for me to feel like she took a vested interest in my life and also was like interested in knowing me as I became older.
That's gorgeous. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is beautiful. What else is there? If somebody already has their family mandate locked in, they already say, yes, we have a family mission statement. We all kind of share this. What are some things what would be some next steps beyond that?
I think probably looking at your mission statement and trying to figure out what you could do together as a family to work towards that, or to kind of fulfill what your mission is.
Right. Yeah. What does it mean? Is there a project we want to do together?
Yeah.
Is there a cause we want to support? Is there maybe even a business we want to launch together? Something we went through as a family. Right? And it doesn't mean a dynastic house does not have to have a business. It really does not. I mean, you think of the 12 tribes of Israel. In each of these clans, right, they were dynasties in and of themselves. And God called the Levite tribe. They weren't business people. They ministered in the temple, in the tabernacle. They were the priests. And so, you see sometimes this family dynasty of those who, my grandfather was a pastor, my great-grandfather was a pastor, right? This bent toward ministry, even. So just want to, say that to set a family mission statement, to have a vision of becoming this family that flourishes generation after generation after generation and passes on a compelling identity that lasts through the generations, does not mean you're in business together. Sometimes, and many times it leads to that, but it doesn't have to. I just want to encourage families to say, to not get hung up and think this is only for families that have had businesses for generations or envision having a business for generations. Every family should start with this. This should be an end in and of itself. And then just to see what comes from it.
That makes sense. They can still have a purpose they work towards together without it having to be necessarily a business.
Yeah. Great. Any other thoughts as we kind of wind this down? This talk on loneliness and family being the solution.
I think it's important to remember that, like, as Christians, ultimately, family isn't where we're supposed to fully find our belonging and identity, because ultimately we should be finding that in Christ. I think that family is just kind of an earthly, I don't know if that's the word to use, but way to find that or see the love of Jesus through your family and find belonging on this earth. But ultimately we should still be finding the belonging in
That's
Jesus.
a good point. Yeah. And I feel like when we're lonely, we have this deep need to be seen and known. And obviously it's so important to know and see others and have other people see and know us. But ultimately that longing is for us to be seen and known by God and to know him as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Oh,
Mike.
I'm so glad you said it. Yeah, absolutely. That is, and it's a perfect segue to kind of, we want to finish this podcast with a tribute to Phil Robertson. You know, Phil recently passed away on May 25th at 79 years old, and right, a man of faith, a man of Dynasty, right? Duck Dynasty we talk about. And when I think of his life, he first and foremost knew whose he was, right? He identified more with being a child of God than he did what he did with his family in creating the enterprise in the family dynasty of Duck Dynasty flowed out of his identity and communion with God. Phil Robertson, he was, in his younger years, I guess he was quite a rebel. And you guys have watched Duck Dynasty, right? And I think, I haven't really watched, I think I watched a couple episodes, and I just know the kids, when they've gotten into it, the youngers. Cy, right? Is it Uncle Cy?
Yeah.
That's who they talk about all the time. Anyway. But I've seen enough to see, that Phil, in his younger years, he was a quarterback at Louisiana Tech. I guess he was even ahead of Terry Bradshaw. But he chose, instead of the NFL, he chose to go to the woods. And started this duck commander company making duck calls. But in the 70s, he experienced a profound conversion. He was a real rebel rouser, but he found Christ, and it completely transformed his life. Just a couple of the things people have said about his life. Corey and Willie Robertson said, "We celebrate today that our father is now with the Lord." And we talk about loneliness. That is the ultimate end of all loneliness, our forever home. Jace Robertson said, "My dad has gone to be with the Lord today. We will see him again." Yeah. And Ben and Candy Carson said, "An American original who never backed down from the truth." Yeah. Phil's life reminds us that belonging starts with knowing whose we are. Phil knew his life was hidden with Christ in God, and the fact that he belonged to God shaped everything else. Yeah. And I think when we can not put family first, but put God first, and then from our relationship with God, let that flow out to our family next, and then from our family to impact the rest of the world, I think is the way we best order that. And I think that honors, well, the legacy of Phil Robertson.
Yeah.
Any of these points of Phil's life resonate with you?
It's comforting to know that, like, even if or when, because most likely everyone will be lonely at some point in their life, like, it's only for this lifetime, and then we'll have the rest of eternity where loneliness isn't even an option. So it's almost comforting knowing even when you are lonely, it's like, oh, it's only for this lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like whenever we sense this longing, it shows us that we were made for something more, and that God will complete that in the future.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You going to end with that one?
Yes.
Okay. So one other thought that sparked that we did want to talk about briefly was this reflection early on in this journey when we were getting together monthly with the family. We were talking about family dynasty, and it was this word was new to us. I caught on in one of the family meetings that a couple of the younger people were going out and talking to their friends. Yeah, we're building this family dynasty. And then they would come back and like, my friends are making fun of me. And it was an aha moment to me that the conversation you're having inside the family is different than the conversation you're having outside the family, right? Yeah. Go ahead, you were going to say something.
And it's not like it's a secret. It's not like, let's keep it inside the family because we have this evil mastermind plan that no one can know about. Yeah. That's not where that's coming from. Mm-hmm. It's just the word can be misinterpreted.
Yeah, exactly. And so when they say, yeah, we're building this family dynasty, you're like, what are you doing? What? Who are you? And that's weird. And and they would come back kind of embarrassed, like thinking that what we were doing was wrong.
Yeah.
And we're saying, wait. First of all, if you want ridicule, go out and tell your friends that you're building a family dynasty. Right? Not a great idea. We can talk about that internally. But when we go out, if somebody's asked, what are you doing? We're just like, well, we're doing life together. We want to be purposeful in what we're doing together. There's a different way to talk about it. Even in starting this podcast in Family Dynasty is thinking, if our neighbors ever listened to this show and thought we were, thought of ourselves as becoming a family dynasty, right? They'd laugh at us, right? Because to our neighbors, we're just another family.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I love how Phil Robertson, like they call themselves a Duck Dynasty. They were. It's beautiful. But it's and it will show up. Like I believe in 5, 6, 8, 10 generations, at some point, it will not be something that's only behind the scenes and hidden. It will be unable to be hidden, right? The goal of a family dynasty is a lot of behind the scenes work. You're influencing things in society, not always out in front, but many times behind the scenes. And it's not a flashy thing. And certainly our goal, and as we're encouraging families to embrace this dynastic vision and work toward it, is not to be known necessarily as a dynasty, even though it is a different way to play the game of life and a way to think. It's more an internal reality that you want to be striving for than to be broadcasting to the world that, hey, we're this big bad family dynasty.
Yeah.
Although it worked for Phil Robertson, it worked for Duck Dynasty.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, girls, thanks. Been another great podcast. Yeah. Look forward to doing this again next time.
Yes.
God bless.
Thanks for joining us on the Family Dynasty podcast, where legacy is built, not just inherited. If today's episode helped you lead your family with greater vision or purpose, share it with someone else who's building a legacy that lasts. And remember, you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the power to get wealth, that He may establish His covenant. Deuteronomy 8:18. Keep building with faith, leading with love, and living for impact. Your family is your greatest calling.